Amazon CEO Andy Jassy recently telling employees that they would have to return to the office 5 days a week. Some current and former Amazon employees blasting the plan as a way to reduce headcount without announcing layoffs. Joining us right now is Joanne Lipman, Yale University lecturer and author of That's What She Said, What Men and Women Need to Know About Working Together. We're also joined by Brian Elliott, Work Forward CEO. Good morning to both of you. I'm actually surprised not by the pushback. I'm surprised by this explanation that somehow folks feel that this is a way to fire more people. It may very well be, but the memo, as far as I understand, was super explicit about the idea that they were planning to take out middle management. So the whole goal, whether you think this is related or not, is take out middle management. We think we have too much middle management and get everybody back 5 days a week. I don't know if, and maybe those things are interconnected or not, but it almost doesn't matter. What do you say?
I agree. It almost doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't is because what Amazon is doing is now being absolutely looked at by every other company to say, can we do this too? Can we bring back people 5 days a week? And a lot of executives want to do that. The problem is, Andrew, we have heard this every single fall. I've been here every single fall since 2020 with executives saying, now it's time. Now
it feels a lot more so.
Back.
I mean, a lot of people are back genuinely now 3-4 days a week. So adding a fourth or fifth day doesn't seem totally.
They're back on a hybrid basis. I think hybrid is very, very different than 5 days a week. I really don't think that we're going to go back to that 5 day a week standard. I think that is wishful thinking.
And do you think it's a bad idea? Meaning Adam Grant is out there quite publicly saying that when it comes to what he calls deep work might be an engineer who's coding by themselves. There's periods of time where you actually have to do the work, right? I'm a writer. You have to do the work. That there are certain instances where not being in an office is actually better to actually be more efficient. But when it comes to meetings and all of the interaction kind of stuff, that clearly being in one place together is better.
100%. And that's why I believe that this hybrid situation is where we're going to end up. The hybrid, 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. But, you want that deep work. Right. You can do that at home.
Brian, what do you think about this?
Yeah, there's lots of ways where you can make flexibility like that work in a lot of different ways. You can look at companies like American Express, Atlassian, Airbnb, NVIDIA, that have all taken a much more flexible approach. And then what they do is instead of saying, hey, here's a top-down command that says, I know the right answer as the CEO for everybody in the company, for every business unit, for every function, they actually ask leaders to figure it out. What's right for your team? And the magic of that is if your team is actually talking this through and figuring out what's the right pattern for us, you get a lot better results. You get better engagement, you get better productivity, you get better satisfaction of your employees. We all kind of get it, right? Like if you have a regional sales team, asking them to be together 3 days a week to learn from each other, to model off of each other, to do the pipeline review, to do some training, can really pay off. If you've got an engineering team that's distributed across 5 states, asking them to come into different offices 3, 4, or 5 days a week is going to strike them as being like, what are you talking about, boss?
It does.
I think Amazon's moved from that sort of team-oriented way of working to I'm the boss, I know what's right, and from 3 to 5 is going to cause them loss of talent.
It sounds to me, if you talk to people in and around Amazon, that even though people put down a 5-day-a-week plan, that there is, I don't want to say there's no expectation that you're going to be there 5 days a week, but the truth of the matter is, for senior people, they're going to travel because they have to work. You talked about salespeople, they're going to travel. This whole idea of even people who are working 3 days a week, oftentimes, and one of the great conundrums that I think a lot of firms have found, is that people never worked 5 days a week to begin with. It wasn't that they didn't work 5 days a week, but they were moving around. Maybe they had to go to meetings, so they weren't in the physical office, even if they were in the same city. Sometimes they're traveling to other places. Sometimes they're bringing their child to the doctor, and so they're missing the morning. And so the whole idea that everybody needs to be in one place is not, it's not that they don't, it's just that if you lop off Monday and you lop off Friday, and then you say to yourself 1 or 2 of those other days is getting missed anyway because people are actually working but in another place, how do you set up a construct where people can actually get together in any efficient way?
That's why 5 days a week, those demands currently are not working. I've spoken to people within companies that are required to be there 5 days a week who say, it makes no sense. I talked to a manager at one of these large organizations who said, look, I'm in one office. The people who report to me are elsewhere. I don't care, and it is a waste of my time to tell them they have to be in 5 days a week because I don't care where they are. I just want them to perform.
And by the way, sometimes the managers aren't there 5 days
and the
a week.
managers don't want to be
right.
there either. But, the research shows, and this is why I really think we will not go back to this 5-day standard. I just think it's so outdated. And the major reason is that it is working. The hybrid situation is working. We're now at a point 4 years in where there's actual research coming out about this. Nicholas Bloom at Stanford, you guys know him well. He has a paper that came out just in June where they looked at a hybrid. I believe it was 3 days a week. They found performance did not suffer. But what did happen is employees were happier and retention improved. And then there was another study, very recent, that came from the University of Pittsburgh that found that when companies do demand people come back and be on the premises, it actually does not affect financial performance. It doesn't improve the stock price or your quarterly earnings. And so, we're seeing that it works.
Brian?
There's also a couple of things we've seen even in the past few days. Nick Bloom and Adam Grant both shared out a study yesterday that showed that if you give people the ability to work where they're most effective, to work from home or work from the office, when they're doing their individual work, you get a 12% boost in productivity. So kind of hard to ignore that one. On top of that, Joanne was talking about the mandates, like pushing people back even further. Besides the fact that it doesn't boost financial performance, it actually degrades employee engagement. And there's mounting evidence now that it does actually cause people to leave. And the people that are most likely to leave are people who've been there the longest, that have tenure, people who have been recently promoted because they have marketable skills, right? They're the ones that can find a job even in a tougher economy.
If it's
and the third one is women.
Women,
there was a study that came out.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a study that came out from Upwork just in July where they polled about 1,000 different C-level executives that had done mandates. 2/3 of them said that it disproportionately caused women to quit over men, and that they couldn't replace those people fast enough, and there was a knock-on effect on their productivity.
That makes sense, Joanne.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this, about the women factor, where women lost their jobs at the beginning of COVID. We had the She Session, and we thought it would be permanent, and this is a terrible thing. But because of hybrid work, we now have a record percentage of women in the workplace, led by women of young children.